Hello and welcome to our third and last episode of the Summer Fiesta Game Jam Devlog. Today, this game is basically done. I'll just add a few more details like more trees, more stars in the sky, and it will be ready to publish. So I'll show you what I have been working, and the first thing that's very apparent is the mountain, right? It's finished. You can see that I added a bit more space for the player to go through. After we solve the puzzle that I showed on the last video, the players can run around to the side. Maybe I'll add something here so it's a bit easier for the players to know that they should come out from this side, and they'll go around and they'll be able to climb the mountain. And after they start the climb, they can enter here and they'll find kind of a puzzle and a new NPC that they can talk to. It's not this guy should be turned to the other side. Alright. It's not really a puzzle because I have spent quite some time here, trying to make something really cool, so a really cool puzzle, but because of the limitations of my code, I wasn't really able to find a way. I had a really cool idea. I worked on it for a couple of hours of platforms that would go up, and would go down, and you have to control that and transport the laser beam from one rock to the other. But it ended up not working well with the current code that I have set up. I'll show what this does real quick, and then I'll show the code. So basically, when you get inside this area, you see that the passage is blocked. Let me show you right here. Yeah, the passage is blocked by this big ice formation here, and you talk to this NPC that will teach you that you can control these rocks. You can rotate them with the E and Q keys on your keyboard, and you can pass the heat from one rock to the other. I thought that this was pretty cool, a pretty cool idea, and if I was able to create a proper puzzle with this, I think it would be very nice. But unfortunately, I do not have much more time to work on this game, and I think it's fine as it is. I have the code, I'll show you soon, and maybe on another project I can expand on this idea and try to make something a bit more engaging. Here on the second floor you have basically the same thing, and then you will open the door to resume the climb. So this is the code for this puzzle, kind of puzzle, as I said, not really. Every one of these rocks is a copy from the other, and all of them have the same code. This node graph right here that's called test puzzle. It's the name that I gave when I was testing, and it became the titular one. So here it is. I'll show you real quick. So we have a basic trigger enter and trigger exit. This is the loot ray, which is this object right here on the rock. This is just the range in which you can rotate the rock. So if I'm out here, I can't rotate, but if I'm inside, I can. So this just sets up a variable, can rotate 1 and 0 when you get out. And then you have the key down commands. So we do all this so we can reference our player, just like we did on the torch. And then this code, if I'm not mistaken, is the E key. You have to test it out, and if the can rotate variable is at 1, then you set the rotation axis of the loot ray that I showed before, this object right here. This object has the rotate component, but it doesn't have a trigger. The trigger is this node graph, right? It's the key down. Then you set the rotation axis to 1 because you want to rotate it clockwise. Then you start the movement. After a bit of delay, you stop. That's why you have to press it a lot of times, because the rotation speed is already set up in this part. So you just start and quickly stop the movement. Right? So it moves a little bit, then you press again. You can kind of mash the button to keep rotating. And then down here for the other key, that if I'm not mistaken is Q. It could be the other way around with these codes, I'm not sure. but it does the same thing, the rotation, but the axis is -1. So this rotates the beam to the other side, right? It's just to make it go counterclockwise. So this is the part of the rotation, and the axis, of course, is itself. It's the place that the ray is, which is set right at the rocks. This is what this part below does. So when loot touch gets inside the trigger, this trigger, as I said before, is in all of the rocks. So let me take the rock, right? This trigger area right here is on all of the rocks. So if this object, loot touch, which is an empty object, if this touches the other rock, then it sets the position of the loot ray to the other rock, right? So this is what this checks, if it's the entity ID of self. So if the loot touches self, the zone trigger box, then you set the global position, you get the global position of self, which means the rock, and you get the Euler at all. I'm not sure how to pronounce this, but you set the rotation of the loot ray to that rock, and you set the position as well to that rock. If you don't set this rotation, if you don't set this rotation right here, the loot ray will still continue with the axis on the first rock, even if the position is already changed. So you have to get this and set this as well. I learned this by trying it out. I didn't do it at first, then I saw that it was needed. So this is it's all that you need for the puzzle. Then you have the destroy node for the ice. So this whole thing right here, it's some ice formations that I took from the asset library, and I made them all child objects to this first one, and I made a node graph for this that checks if the loot ray entered its trigger box. This is what we'll see here. Basically the same thing from the rock, right? If it's on trigger enter, if it's the loot touch, you check if it's self, right? If it entered our trigger box. Then if it's true, it will pass this ray up to the lava rock. I called it lava rock just so it had a different name from the other objects. Lava rock, if I'm not, it's this one. So the ray will come up here. It won't be transferred to any of the other rocks. It will go up there so you can keep going with the puzzle, right? Like I did on the example. So it sets the position, it gets the position, it sets there, then it sets the rotation as well, and you spawn the ice effect. Let me show real quick what this effect is. I think it's right around here. It's ice explosion. Here it is. Let's see where it's at on this. It's all the way down here, and it's an effect, and it has a sound effect as well, just so it's a bit of game juice, right? So when the laser touches this, it goes away and it just doesn't disappear, right? It has a bit of an effect to it. Yeah, and it has an effect to it, and then you destroy self, which is the ice rock itself. Then the ray will be all the way up here, and you can continue, and this has the same node graph, and then you can get out here, go up, and basically finish the game. We also have an encounter with these NPCs right here that I showed you, but all around the mountain on a few bonfires. I'll show this example right here on this one. So I'll show you the encounter with the main antagonist right here. In a few of the bonfires, when you get in, this will appear and it will kind of mock you. It will try to make you turn back at this part, which is basically at the end of the game. It just doesn't believe that you made it all the way up here, and then there's some dialogue. You can see it later on the full game, and when you get closer it disappears, and then you can keep going. And I'll show you the end of the game, the final part of the game as well, which didn't involve any node graphs, but there was a bit of messing around with the components of Yahaha, so I'll show this. So as you enter this part, you'll see that there's a dialog. Let me go through it real quick, and you'll see the sun coming up, you'll see a directional light rotating, and the game will end very soon. This dialog is supposed to happen just once, and yeah, in a few seconds you'll get the victory, and I'll show you what's going on at this part. Alright, so we have a couple of things in this part. You have the dialogue for this character, and you have the game over, which is this big empty object right here that moves down when you enter a trigger. When you enter the game over trigger, which is another object right here, game over trigger, this will come down, the sun will start coming up, and there's a directional light on the sun as well that will start rotating. You will see that it has a trigger to rotate. So this is how this whole ending kind of cutscene, not really a cutscene, but this part, kind of more cinematic part, was made. And the fog that's down here also goes down. It's just to give us a look like it's morning, right? The sun came up and it's early morning, and it's a nice feeling. And then the game ends, you end at a victory, and that's basically it. I don't think that I forgot anything that I was supposed to show. I think the basic code that I used to make everything work, I showed, and maybe something that I left out was a component for Yahaha, which is something very simple. If you have any doubts on how to do some of these things, and if I didn't mention it, you can contact me, and I can help you out. But okay, so I'll just finish editing this a little bit, this map, and I'll publish it, and let's wait for the results, right? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.